Randy for a long period of time. He recognizes that everyone has a test that becomes our testimony. And let us enjoy, listen, and pray for Randy as he shares with us his testimony.
Right now. But I speak from my heart. And when you do your testimony, you're talking about yourself, but I don't want you guys to get the impression I'm boasting on myself. God put all these things in my pathway, and He gave me, the only thing He gave me was the courage to share it with you. I call it the best day, but the worst day of my life. The worst day was because I lost 25 of my friends and my soldiers. Best day was because it made me a better man. I was in the Army for many years, and I was in a unit that was very gung ho, hoorah, the 82nd Airborne. And my goal was to be in Delta Force, and I had some friends that were in Delta Force. And that was my ultimate goal. They were always pushing me to go to Delta, and they said you had the mindset of that. And they said go through Special Forces training and then take the test for the Delta Force, and then that'll get you a basis so you get you ready for the Delta. Well, 2 days before graduation, I broke my neck at the SF training, and so it killed everything else. But God had a plan. Um, March 23rd, 1994, at Pope Air Force Base was where we got our parachutes. You see, I was raised in a Christian family. I was raised in a Christian home. When the doors were open, we were there. Good old Baptist. Um, I mean, anyway, so my parents raised me right. When I got out on my own and I joined the military, I was a free man. And I was out there and I was doing some pretty shameful stuff. Um, but nobody was going to stop me. I was dabbling a little bit of everything. I was pushing the limits. That's why I do the life recovery meetings. It's a Christian based AA. I never got that far, but I think it was because I was in the military and it kept me right inside the borderline. I think if I wouldn't have ever joined the military, I would have been a mess. But anyway, March 23rd, 1994 is at lunchtime, and Sergeant Prestis, a good friend of mine, came up to me and asked me, he said, Randy, you want to go to Green Ramp and check on Sergeant Maldonado? He was going through Jump Master School, and that's also this place where you get your parachutes before you go jump out of those perfectly good airplanes. And so we drove out there, and he was still in class for a little bit. And I don't know if they got that picture of the burn area with that one truck burned up. But we got out there right there. That was a gut truck. The gut truck is it's got been coined many frames, maggot wagon. It's where you go out to areas where guys can go to the cafeteria and you can buy food off of it. So Sergeant Maldonado got released from class, and the three of us walked over to that truck. It wasn't 30 seconds after that the plane crashed. I shouldn't be here. I should have been killed 4 times out there. There was a row of trees probably from here to the parking lot. My back was to it. My two friends were standing there, we're talking. Next thing you know, their eyes got huge. I looked over my shoulder to see an F-16 fighter jet coming in right at us. I dove underneath a small bush right as the plane had hit right by us. That's when I got up underneath. It was loaded with jet fuel, and it went everywhere. Everything was on fire. It was so hot. That bush that I jumped underneath was on fire. but better it than me. I crawled out thinking, oh my God, what has just happened? I ran towards all these guys that were doing what they call pre jump training. We're standing there. This plane had just slid right, crashed right through all these guys. I ran in towards them saying, oh my God, what has happened? And the plane blew up again. It blew me back. I got up and I came up to a young man. He could have been 20 years old. He's screaming at the top of his lungs with his hand stretched out. This hand was trapped. And he couldn't see me because his whole face and everything, he was saturated with jet fuel. Just screaming, help me, help me. I run into the burning area. I grabbed him by his hand and I yanked as hard as I could. His hand ripped off like a glove. I grabbed him by his shirt and I yanked. Each yank I was getting just a little bit more. Finally got him out and I tried to beat the flames out. And as I was beating the flames, they weren't going out. He was saturated with this jet fuel. I pulled out my knife and I started cutting these clothing off. And where the jet fuel got on his skin, I'd rub the skin off. It didn't take me a minute, maybe. He's already burned 90% of his body, third degree. I knew he was going to die. So I had to make a life decision. Do I stay here and console this guy? Or do I go on and help somebody else? Well, having a medical background, I knew he was going to die. So I went to the second guy. I'm sorry. I went to the second guy. What this guy said to me changed my life. If you can picture a guy, another young guy, laying on his back, had the old jungle boots. Any of you military guys had the old green jungle boots that had that metal plate that went down the bottom of it. This is how hot it was. He's laying there. All of his clothing is burned off. All of his hair, the tips of his ears. His eyes were open, and the rubber was melted off of his boots so much that you could see the metal shank that goes between the sole and the bottom of the shoe. It was sticking out. His skin was on fire. I was going to lean down and wipe the skin off so he wouldn't be burning. And with the most peace I've ever heard in anybody's voice or seen in anybody's eyes, he said, Sarge, he said, don't worry about me. He said, help my friends. I know I'm going to die, but I know where I'm going. Wow. What he said to me that day changed me. Not right then. It took about 6 months. I worked on 2 other guys after that. Last guy, I've got actually, I got a picture of him. His leg got ripped off below the knee, and he's sitting up against what we'd call a conics or a small shipping container. He's just sitting there. One leg he's patting out. It's like those trick birthday candles that you get for your kids, and they blow them out and they come back. That's what his leg was doing with that jet fuel. His other leg was gone below the knee. I came up to him to work on him and was doing a survey, and I got to his knee, his legs, and his leg was gone. So I reached for my belt to pull it out. You know, all my superiors used to get on me about wearing a belt. I thought it was stupid because the top covers the belt, right? I can't see it. My pants aren't going to fall down. They fit me nice. Boy, I wish I had a belt this day. I reached for my belt. I didn't have it on. I'm knelt beside this guy. As soon as I went there, 5 seconds, a young soldier came up, big guy. Came up and he knelt, came over and said, Sarge, what can I do to help? And I said, give me your belt. I need to put a tourniquet on him. He undid his belt. He went like that, pulled it out, went down to a knee like he was pulling a sword out of a sheath. Passed it across the young man that was laying between us. As soon as his knee hit the ground, we heard a bam. We didn't realize that this F-16 was loaded with live ammunition, and one just cooked off right behind him. I heard it, didn't see where it went off until I seen the guy across from me crumble and go down with his up. I remember his eyes were just so wide looking at me, help me. The round went right through his back. 30 seconds later, he's dead. Why could it have been me? If he would have came 5 seconds later, it would have been me and that soldier. I ran to the hospital, which was about 6 miles. Shirt, I don't know where my shirt was. Anybody that's in the military knows that you don't go outside without a hat. And you definitely don't run around without a shirt and a hat. I ran from Green Ramp all the way to Womack Hospital. So I used to work there when I did my OJT for radiology. I ran up there, and Sergeant Young, who was the guy in charge of the department, said, I went up there and I said, I need to help. What can I do to help? And he looked at me. My clothing was all burned up. My hands were so burnt, it was like you took a medical glove and pulled it over and blew some air on it. I couldn't bend my fingers. After everything, after we got everybody evacuated, we went around with litters and put the body parts and the dead bodies on it, and I couldn't even bend. I had to carry the litters like that. He looks at me and he says, you need to go up to the second floor to the OR waiting room. If they need any x-rays in the OR, we'll call you. It was actually a place to put me so I wouldn't do anything, because my mindset wasn't in, I was in shock. And I sat up there from about 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. I didn't know, we didn't have cell phones back there unless you had those big ones. I didn't know that my folks had seen something on the news. Plane crash at Pope Air Force Base. Several Fort Bragg paratroopers were killed. And that mother's instinct, she called my unit. My commander answered. He told my mom, we did head count and your son's not accounted for. We do them every hour. Call me back in an hour. I'll let you know. Or if he comes, I'll let you know. I was at the hospital waiting to help out there. They didn't know. The 2 guys I went out there with, they asked them, they said, well, once the plane had crashed, we all went different ways and we didn't see him after that. And there was rounds cooking off. We don't know. He could be dead. At 5 o'clock, I started walking back to my unit. My mom had already called five times, because I did every hour. I was the only one missing, unaccounted for in my unit. And he didn't know what to tell her. He says the last couple times she called, says, ma'am, I'm sorry, but I don't think he made it. I come walking up, t-shirt, burnt up pants, no headgear. My commander says, you need to call your mom. She thinks you're dead. Called him, and my dad answered, and I don't remember it even ringing. And he said, son, is that you? I said, yes, sir. He says, are you okay? Mentally or physically, I'm okay. And then there's that awkward pause, and my dad's a Christian man. He's a devout Christian man, loves the Lord, reads his Bible every morning. I was mad at God. I had that awkward pause, and then I said, Dad, you're a man of God. How could God do this? I just seen a bunch of young kids die today. How could God do that? He said what was the wisest thing I've ever heard come out of my dad's mouth, and he's a very wise man, which he didn't pass that down to me. But he uh, he said, "Son, I can't answer you why. I can just tell you if you turn it over to him, he'll bless you for it." It took me 6 months at least. I had to get out of Fort Bragg. The only way I could get out of the 82nd was to go drill sergeant or recruiter, and I wasn't going recruiter. So I put in a drill sergeant packet and went to drill sergeant school. They'd put me in for the soldier's medal, um, which I didn't know. I've been put in for it twice. I saved a kid that was drowning, but they'd lost the witness statement, so I didn't get that, but the kid's alive. The soldier's medal is basically the same as, pretty much the same criteria as a Medal of Honor, but Medal of Honor is given during wartime and soldier's medal is given during peacetime. I was put in for two of those in my career, and the one lost a witness statement would have been. I don't say this boastfully. I'm telling you this because God puts me in some hairy situations. Would have been the only soldier in the military to ever get two of those awards. But anyway, lost my train of thought. God has used 6 months later, after I tried to drink myself to death, tried to do drugs, and tried to see how far I could ride a wheelie on my motorcycle that probably blow a .2 on the blood alcohol. I mean, I was just doing really stupid things because I was so guilty. You know why I was guilty? I about got killed 3 times at that plane crash. By the fuel, by getting hit by the plane when that round went off. But the thing that was most detrimental to me was I was raised in a Christian family. My parents raised me right. And I might not have been able to talk to all those guys that passed away that day, but I guarantee you they seen my actions, and I'm by no means am I perfect, but I try to show the love of God through my work and actions. And I didn't show it to them back then. I didn't do what my parents had raised me, and there's a good possibility if I would have been living for the Lord and my actions were right and I did what my parents had taught me, I might have had a chance to speak to one or two of those soldiers that passed away. That was the guilt that I carried. That was the heaviest. That I still fight, and I've turned it all over to God, but I still fight with myself over that and the guilt. And I've done a lot of stupid things after that plane crash, things that I regret. My kids don't have anything to do with me. Worked all the time. That's what I tell my guys. Your kids have an event, you go to that event. You don't have nothing to lose. You get paid at the school. Mike did it Friday. His son graduated from what grade? Kindergarten. Kindergarten graduation. Miss Randy, can I have the morning off? I got Liam's graduate. Absolutely. I wasn't there. I was one of those dads that wasn't there. I can't change it. Doing these speaking engagements, you can never really get the people to know what's in your head and what you saw. You try to, but you can never really get them to understand what you've went through. But this is my therapy. These speaking engagements are my therapy, and I am so honored that about half of this group that came out today is friends of my new partner. Let me tell you about Logan. He sat right there 3-4 years ago. 5 years ago, he started his own business. Same business that I've got, tree business. Mr. Randy, how do I go about getting a business license? Mr. Randy, how do I go about doing this? How do I go about? He kept calling me. My folks used to come down during the winter months. My dad's a devout Christian man, and he's a heck of a businessman. I get off the phone. I said, Dad, that's a young man in town that's starting a tree service. He says, son, you're messing up. I said, I'm messing up? He says, yeah. Who in their right mind helps somebody that's in the same business, in the same town, start a business? He's going to take your. I said, but what would God want me to do? But I just don't think it's a good idea. Every time Logan called me and asked me for something, Mr. Randy, it always ended it like this. Mr. Randy, if you ever need anything, just ask. I'll do it. Every time. He said that and he meant it because Logan's very loyal. Actually, this whole group right in here, not saying that you guys aren't, this whole group right here would do anything for each other. It's like a little family within a family. Well, I never took people up on if you ever need anything. But Pastor finally let me share what I just told you today. And God laid you on my heart. Hey, Logan, you said you ever need anything, just ask. I said, what you got? I said, I'm sharing my testimony. Would you come out and listen to it? I'll be there. He sat right there, sitting on his edge of his seat. Logan told me later he was at a bad time of his life. And made a decision that I'm going to tell you about in a minute. And never went back to that old way. Who would have thought that? I swore I'd never partner up with anybody. Who would have thought that that young man that I was helping start a business that many years ago is now my partner? That's how God works. I've seen it over and over again. That life recovery meeting that you seen flash up there. I told you earlier I'd probably been the biggest addict out there if I wasn't in the military. I get people asking, why would you start the Prodigal Son New Life Ministry, which was a transition house, which after they graduated, they got to come through. Mike, you mind me sharing this? Mike, he's my climber. 3 years ago, graduated from a rehab. Prior to that, he was homeless in Los Angeles with the clothes on his back, doing drugs, looking for his next fix. Had 2 kids on the East Coast. They wouldn't let him see him because every time they seen him, they'd have to put the pieces back together of those little kids. Now he's got custody of his son's got a wife and a baby and can see his daughter whenever been clean. Couple, 2.5 years. 2.5 years. Look at him. He's happy. You should have seen him when I first met him. He came, he didn't have any family. I think his parents, he got raised in foster care, and foster parents adopted him. Had a rough start. And now look at him. God has blessed me. He has put wonderful people in my life. Because of Logan, these people right here are my friends. John, he's a local young man, and I encourage you on Tuesday night, the Life Recovery at 7 o'clock. And if you haven't ate, don't worry, because we bring food. We got several people that come out. It's like a faith-based drug, alcohol. any issues. PTSD, I've had people that had eating disorders, all kinds of people. Before COVID, 13 weeks into it, we had over 50 people coming. We run about 30 now. We just cranked it back up. John, raise your hand. This is John. He's a local. He lives out in Tennessee near Nashville, and his wife and mother. He's going to be sharing his testimony. I'm going to be in the hospital having a heart procedure, and they're doing it so late in the afternoon. Doctor said that they're going to keep me overnight. So I want you to pray that the doctor lets me come because I want to be here. But we got a backup plan. I got somebody that's going to record it. But I am so excited. I'm so excited how God has. Man, I could go on for hours about how God has used different stuff. And it's all about not putting God in a box. Don't put him in a box. Our God can do anything. Too many people want to say, oh, okay, if you just do this, well, he can do much bigger things. Don't put limitations on him. You won't see me going out, hey, if you die today, are you going to go to heaven or are you going to go to hell? I don't do that. I want my motto for my business is showing God's love through our work and actions. I want you all to see it. I don't want to have to force it down you. Because when you come to me about it, you're not going to have this big old wall. If I come up to you and say, if you die today, are you going to hell or heaven? The wall goes up. If you see it in my actions, says, man, that guy's all right, There's something different about him. Hey, John, what's different about you? I have 0 walls up. I mean, you do it however you want. That's the way I've always done it. So at this time, I'm going to get them to turn the lights down. I want to ask you a question. I'm going to have the band members come up. You mind if I ask you a question? I want everybody, this is a personal thing. So I don't want anybody looking around. I can't see you because of these lights. But I want everybody to just bow their head, close their eyes, and just listen to what I've got to say. Anybody that knows me knows that I really love people. I would do anything. I picked up a hitchhiker 5 months ago. Didn't even have time to go to Rankin to look at a job, but the guy begged me. Happened to be my drummer back here's father-in-law. My wife kept telling him, we don't do work in Rankin. Well, my landscaper said you're the best, and I just need some advice. I'll pay him for coming out here. It had to have been over a month. I called him up. Sir, I can break out during lunch. I'll run over there, but it's got to be quick. I ran over there, left out of his subdivision, didn't drive 200 meters. This young man, I say young, he's my age, walking on the road. I pulled off. I needed to get back to work with the guys, picked him up. His name was Jerry. He was supposed to speak today, but felt that he needed to move on, so he's not here. Picked him up. So where are you going? He says, I'm going to Florida. What kind of work you do? Well, I do carpentry work. I said, I'm working on a house, trying to redo this house. You want to look at it? If you like it, I'll let you live there. I pay you so much a day, and you got a place to live. I'll check it out. It's on the water. He had a fishing hat and a fishing shirt. Took him over. He was blown away. He started working with me. Been worked on that house for 5 months. About a month and a half ago, he gave his heart to the Lord and was baptized up here. And while he was sitting in that baptismal tub, he said he had been an atheist his whole adult life. Didn't want anything to do with God. But because of the love that people showed within this church because he came out. He gave his heart to the Lord. Boy, money can't buy that. I told my dad when he said, you shouldn't be helping that man. What, am I going to lose a little money and jobs? No, I'm not going to lose. I might, so what? The man gave his heart to the Lord that morning. And now he's my partner. So I want to give everybody, I don't ever want to speak and not give people the opportunity. I want to give you the opportunity to have what I have. And that's knowing that when you die, you leave this earth, because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. We're just guaranteed right now. I want to give you the opportunity. And it's so easy. God didn't make it hard. You just got to do it with sincerity. You got to mean it. And you hear different phrases: give my heart to the Lord, ask Jesus into my heart. Whatever you want to phrase it, I don't care. It's just believing that Jesus died on a cross for you. And if you were the only person out there on this earth, he would have still hung on that cross. If I was there, he would have still hung on that cross. And he didn't have to. And God sent his only son. If you got one kid, would you do it? He didn't have to do it. But he did, because he loved you and he loves me. So with your head bowed, I'm going to say a simple prayer, and you can say it to yourself, you can say it out loud. But if you don't have that free gift that God wants you to accept, he's got it held out there to you. All you got to do is take it. And you'll know that you're going to go have a place in heaven. So let's pray. And if you want to do this, just repeat after me. Lord, I know I'm a sinner. I know you sent your son to the cross to shed his blood for my sins. I know you had to do this because your son was without sin. So I ask Jesus to come into my heart and save me. Lord, save me from hell. Save me from the enemy, from the devil. I give you the praise and the glory, for it's in your name we ask. Amen. All right, well, keep your heads bowed down. I'm almost done. I really don't want anybody looking around. This is between you and God. If you said that, if you weren't a Christian and you said that prayer this morning, would you just real quickly throw your hand up and put it right back down? Thank you. Thank you. I've seen hands go up all over the place. Thank you, Jesus. At this time, I want everybody to look up here, because we're going to close out. That part was between you and God. But being a Christian is not between you and God. It is, but it's a little bit more. It's between you, God, and the others around you. First time you rode a bike, it wasn't easy, was it? Every time you do something, it gets easier and easier. And I'm telling you, giving your heart to the Lord is not easy. It's not easy being a Christian, living for God. It's not easy. But everything's hard the very first time. So I'm going to give you an opportunity. I can't see you. Can I get a couple lights on? I'm going to give you an opportunity to get your first time of doing something out of the way, so the next time it's going to be easy without even thinking of it. If you gave your heart to the Lord, would you stand for me right now? Would you? Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. If you have any questions, I'd love to talk with you. Maybe fill out a blue card. The best gift you could ever receive. At this time, we're going to close out with a song. If you want to come up, I can pray with you. If we get too many, we can have other people come out. But